Today I'm going to take the topic on network security. What is network security? So when we come into form of website and web application, the website and web application are typically an informational nature in with a limited and advanced functionality. So this is how the functionality takes place with the simple websites consisting of the primarily of statistic content and also the data that is displayed and in the form of every visitor and how the content changes is also very frequent in the form of website. So website is nothing but we are getting some information in nature with a limited amount of advanced functionality. Whereas in the form of web applications or rich internet application, so these things are represented in either a website or as a part of a website. So but not all the websites are web applications, we must know about that first. So the web applications, or it is called as the rich internet application, RIA, it can be represented either as a website or is a part of a website. So when the website is there, it is not a web application. A web application is a website that does something other than the display. So other than a display or a content of masses, the web application takes place. So this is the difference between the website and the web application. So for example, if you take a eBay, so eBay is actually a web application where the PayPal and Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, eHarmony, eTrade, Gmail, Wikipedia. So these all things are actually a web application. So whereas your bank is assuming its offers the online banking, that's web application component on this site. Okay, so that's how you have to find out. So if you can think of a site where you can create an account, a login, or you can able to conduct some actual business, then that is actually called as a web application. So your bank and assuming it offers online banking, these are all comes under the web application. And from that site, if you're creating an account, login and conduct some actual business, it is called as the web application. So these are the definitions to be followed for a threat, vulnerability, and attack. Whereas a threat is defined as it's a potential occurrence, or it could be a harm as an asset. In other words, a threat is any bad thing that had happened to your asset. Asset is nothing but the data, or the safer side, the thing that you are kept very safely. So in that way, if any threat comes for that data or that asset, that is actually called as a threat. Vulnerability is nothing but it is a weakness that makes a threat possible. So since if any system or the hardware or the software is very weak, it can be easily hacked. In that process, in that places, definitely threat will be possible over there. So this may be because of the poor design or the configuration mistakes, and also some inappropriate insecure coding techniques. All those things will comes under in the form of vulnerability. Whereas the attack is nothing but it is an action that exploits a vulnerability or enacts a threat. So example of attacks that includes a sending malicious input, application for flooding a network, and also to deny the service. All those things comes under the action that exploits a vulnerability or enacts the threat that attacks that sending malicious and also the input for applying it. So now we will see the difference between the attack and the threat. So as I said before, attack is attacking the target of getting the data, and threat is nothing but there is a possibility for a threat. So the main difference between threat and attack is the threat can either be intentional or unintentional, whereas attack is actually the intentional. So that is more important. That is the biggest difference between the attack and the threat. Threat is a circumstance that has potential to cause loss or damage, whereas attack is attempt to cause damage. So threat to the information system, it does not mean the information will be alert or damaged, but whereas the attack, okay, it for the information system, it is the chance to alter damage. It is 100% confirmed the attack will be done. The data will be destroyed successfully. So the security threat is the expressed potential for the occurrence of any attack, whereas the security attack is an action that takes place against with the intention of doing it harm. So this is how the vulnerability takes place. Whereas the vulnerability, this is how, the difference between the attack and the threat. Whereas the vulnerability, it as I said before, it is the weakness in the technology and the configuration and also the security policy. So if any discovered vulnerability takes place in the system, it could take an advantage of making the system into more weak. So it is difficult to throughoutly test the application for all the possible instructions. So these are the vulnerability that takes place, the technology weakness, the configuration weakness, and the security policy weakness. So when it calls for the vulnerability, it has some technology weakness, whereas the computer and the technologies will have some intrinsic security weakness. So this actually includes the TCP/IP protocol. So whereas the and also the operating system weakness and the network equipment weakness also takes place. So when you go to the transmission control protocol, the internet protocol are the two distinct protocols. So the TCP/IP, that is transmission control protocol, and the internet protocol is a single most important computer networking. So the internet has most home networks that support the TCP/IP. It has a language, and the computer must use to find out, and it has to connect with each other. So this is one of the security portal where we can able to protocol where we can able to reduce the vulnerability. So the vulnerability has some configuration weakness also. It has some network administrations, and network engineers have to learn what are the weakness that has to be found. So the common problem is we have to turn on the JavaScript in the web browsing, so that is there any process of hacking takes place, all those things can be done. So the unsecured user account, system account with easily guessed passwords, these are the things that can be done for the vulnerability of the system. So the threats, as I said before, it will definitely has some intention or unintentional, but there is an advantage of vulnerability and cause a negative impact of the network. So these are the threats, and the threat has some unstructured threats, and also the unstructured threats, that is the unintentional process takes place where the hackers will be in the form of not an experienced person, still have to do some serious damage to the company or the system. Those kinds of done in the form of threats, whereas the thread has a structured threads also, which is more planned, as for the specific network or organization will be threat, and hacked by the hackers who are more highly motivated and technically component. So these people will know the system of vulnerabilities and can understand the developed code. External threats. So there are structured threats, unstructured threats, and some external threats that can arise from the individuals and organizations who are working outside a company. They do not have the authorized access. They work only in the form of a network family. So the threats will be done everywhere, all over the world. The total of 60% to 80% of reported incidents takes place or daily. Whereas in the form of attack, it is more intentional, and lots of attacks takes place every day all over the world. So the sites that has been cracked include the Yahoo, the US Army, NASA, and also the New York Times. These are also, they has been cracked and they have went into it. So these are the attacks, which is the main thing is the DOS attacks. So these attacks are very common, that takes place all over the world. So, as I said, there are four primary classes of attacks. That is the access, denial of service, DOS, and the worms, viruses, and Trojan horses. So, these are the attacks, that four commonly attacks that happen always. So in the form of access, we how the system is accessed by the ability and also the authorized intruder to gain the access to a device. So it can be intruder and does not have an account or a password. So while entering into or accessing the system, it does not have authority to actually uses the vulnerability of the process. So denial of service is nothing but DOS. It implies that an actor Attacker, it disables and corrupts the network system and also the services with the intent to deny the services. So it attacks and also involve the crashing of system. Slowly, one by one process will takes place. So worms, viruses, and Trojan horses is also very important. It replicates the same, and also the security process takes place, and lots of attacks. The primarily attack takes place in the form of worms, viruses, and Trojan horses. So these are the things which has a network security. So this is how the network security is more important, how the hackers goes on with many tools and attack the datas or the things to be taken from the valuable tools. Thank you.